The asteroid field looked dead and empty. Commander Hyun stood in the small shuttle, watching the gray rocks float past the windows. His team sat behind him, checking their weapons and equipment. They had done this patrol 100 times before. Nothing ever happened out here in the Helios Drift. Lieutenant Yuna looked at her scanner and frowned. She saw something strange on the screen. An old mining station on asteroid Helios 9 was sending out energy signals. That did not make sense. The station had been empty for 3 years. "Commander, I am reading power signatures from the mining station," Yuna said. Someone turned on the equipment. Hyun walked to her station and studied the readings. His eyes narrowed. The energy pattern was too clean, too organized. This was not old mining equipment turning on by accident. This was something else. "What do you think, Commander?" asked Master Sergeant Kwan. The big soldier was cleaning his rifle, but his voice was serious. Kwan had fought in many battles. He knew when something felt wrong. "I think we should look, but carefully," Hyun said. "Bora, can you scan for any ships or active weapons?" Specialist Bora typed quickly on her computer. She was young but very smart with technology. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard. After a moment, she shook her head. "Nothing, sir. The area is clear."
"Just the station and those power readings." Hyun made his decision.
They would land and investigate. If someone was using the station, Earth Command needed to know about it. He ordered the pilot to take them down to the asteroid surface. The shuttle landed near the mining station entrance. The team put on their helmets and grabbed their weapons. Private Doyen checked his rifle 3 times. This was only his second real mission, and he was nervous. His hands shook a little as he followed the others out of the shuttle. The mining station tunnels were dark and cold. The team moved slowly, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Kwan took point, his rifle ready. Yuna and Hyun followed in the middle. Bora carried her scanner, watching for any electronic signals. Doyen brought up the rear, trying to control his breathing. They walked deeper into the tunnels. The power readings were getting stronger. Bora stopped suddenly and stared at her scanner. Her face went pale. "Commander, I am detecting advanced technology ahead. Very advanced. This is not human equipment." Before Hyun could respond, everything went wrong. A massive electromagnetic pulse wave hit them like a hammer. All their electronic equipment died instantly. The lights went out. The radios went silent. Even their helmet displays went black. "It is a trap!" Kwan shouted. "Everyone, back to the shuttle, move!" They ran back through the dark tunnels, using only the emergency chemical lights on their suits. But when they reached the entrance, they saw something terrible. Through the opening, they could see their shuttle. It was dead, completely powered down, and in the sky above the asteroid, huge alien ships were appearing out of nowhere. They had been hiding with stealth technology. The ships were massive and beautiful in a scary way. Their hulls were silver and covered with strange symbols. Lights pulsed along their sides. These were Kethrin warships, and there were dozens of them. "Take defensive positions," Hyun ordered. The team scattered, finding cover behind rocks and old mining equipment. They aimed their rifles at the sky as small attack ships began to descend toward them. The battle started fast and brutal. The Kethrin soldiers came down in drop pods that hit the ground like meteors. When the pods opened, alien warriors emerged. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with silver metallic skin and 4 arms. They carried energy weapons that glowed with blue light. Around their bodies, personal shields shimmered. The humans opened fire. Their bullets hit the shields and sparked but did not penetrate. The Kethrins fired back with plasma bolts that melted rock and metal. The humans had to keep moving, keep dodging, keep fighting. Kwan proved why he was called unbreakable. He saw that bullets would not work, so he changed tactics. He threw a grenade behind a group of Kethrins. When they turned to look, he shot their shields from the side where they were weaker. 2 aliens fell. He killed a 3rd one with his combat knife when it got too close. But there were too many. For every alien they hurt, 5 more appeared. Yuna took a plasma bolt to her shoulder and went down screaming. Bora dragged her behind cover. Doyen froze when he saw an alien warrior walking straight toward him. The creature was huge and terrifying. Its 4 arms held different weapons. Doyen could not move, could not think. "Doyen, move!" Yuna shouted, even though she was injured. She fired at the alien, drawing its attention. That broke Doyen out of his panic. He dove behind a rock just as plasma bolts hit where he had been standing. Hyun realized they could not win this fight. They were completely outnumbered and outgunned. If they kept fighting, they would all die. He made the hardest decision of his life. Cease fire!
Cease fire!
He ordered. Put down your weapons. We surrender. Quan looked at him with angry eyes, but he obeyed. One by one, the humans dropped their rifles and raised their hands. The Kethrans stopped shooting and surrounded them. A larger ship landed nearby. From it emerged a Kethran who was clearly in charge. He was bigger than the others and wore armor decorated with medals and symbols. His four eyes looked at the human prisoners with obvious amusement. This was Supreme Commander Thexal, leader of the Kethran expansion fleet. He walked slowly around the captured humans, studying them like a scientist studying insects. So these are humans, Thexal said in perfect English, his translator working perfectly. His voice was deep and filled with mockery. These are the creatures who claim to be warriors? He picked up one of their dropped rifles and examined it. You still use kinetic projectiles? You throw metal at your enemies? He laughed, and his soldiers laughed with him. Thexal walked to Quan and looked at the knife on his belt. He pulled it out and held it up. And this a metal blade? How primitive. How absolutely primitive. More laughter echoed across the asteroid. Yun said nothing. He met the alien commander's eyes without fear or anger. He just watched and waited. Take them to the Ascendancy, Thexal ordered. These specimens will be useful for study. The collective will enjoy seeing such primitive creatures. Perhaps we will put them in a museum. As the Kethran soldiers grabbed the humans and forced them toward a transport ship, Bora managed something incredible. Her hands were behind her back and she had a small device hidden in her sleeve. It was a quantum communicator, a backup system that worked on different technology than their regular radios. The Kethrans did not know about this particular human invention. With quick hidden movements, she activated it. The device sent out a single burst message. Location, 5 humans captured. Hostile force. The message shot through space faster than light, racing toward Earth. The Kethrans never noticed. They were too busy laughing and celebrating their easy victory. The humans were thrown into a transport ship. As they sat in the dark cargo hold, bruised and defeated, Hyun looked at each member of his team. He made eye contact with Quan, then Yuna, then Bora, then Doyen. No words were spoken, but a message passed between them. It was a message they had practiced in training, a signal they all understood. Stand firm, keep fighting, help is coming. The transport lifted off and flew toward the massive Kethran flagship. The ship was called Ascendancy, and it was 3 miles long, bristling with weapons. Around it floated 40 Kethran warships in perfect formation. It looked like an unstoppable force. As they approached the enormous flagship, Doyen felt tears on his face. He tried to hide them, but Quan saw. The big sergeant leaned close and whispered something the aliens could not hear. Do not worry, kid. This is not over. Not even close. The transport docked with the Ascendancy. The prisoners were dragged through bright corridors filled with Kethran crew members who stopped to stare and laugh at the primitive humans. They were thrown into cells in a detention block, energy barriers locking them inside. Hyun sat in his cell and looked out at the Kethran fleet through a small window. 40 warships, thousands of soldiers, advanced technology everywhere. The odds seemed impossible, but Hyun knew something the Kethrans did not know. He knew human military protocol. He knew that Earth Command took prisoner retrieval very seriously. If that message got through, and he believed it had, then the fleet would come. The only question was when. He did some calculations in his head. The quantum signal would reach Earth in about 6 hours. Fleet mobilization would take 12 hours. Travel time to this location at maximum speed would be about 60 hours. Total time roughly 4 days, 4 days. His team just had to survive for 4 days. Hyun looked at the massive alien fleet one more time. Then he smiled. It was a small, cold smile. The Kethrans had no idea what was coming. They thought capturing 5 human soldiers was a victory. They were about to learn a terrible lesson. You do not take humans prisoner, not without consequences, not without paying a price. The Kethrans would learn this soon enough. Very soon. The detention cells were cold and bright. The energy barriers hummed with power, creating walls of glowing blue light that the prisoners could not touch. Hyun sat on the metal bench in his cell and watched the Kethran guards walk past. They looked at him like he was an animal in a cage. On the second day of their captivity, the interrogations began. Kethran guards came and took Hyun from his cell. They walked him through long corridors to a room with no windows. Inside, a Kethran waited. This one was different from the soldiers. He wore no armor, only dark robes. His name was Velkos, and he was an interrogator. "Sit," Velkos said, pointing to a chair in the center of the room. His voice was smooth and cold. Hyun sat. He kept his face calm and his breathing steady. He had been trained for this. Velkos walked around him slowly. "I have broken prisoners from 23 different species," the alien said. Some tried to resist. Some tried to stay strong. All of them failed in the end. All of them told me everything I wanted to know. Hyun said nothing. He just stared straight ahead. The interrogator activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air showing human colonies. Then the images changed, showing the colonies under attack, buildings burning, people running. "Your people are dying," Velkos said. "Your Earth government has abandoned you. They are negotiating surrender with the Kethrin Collective. You are alone." Hyun knew these images were fake. They had to be. But they still hurt to watch. Still, he kept his face blank. He did not react. Velkos tried many different tactics over the next hours. He showed false news broadcasts. He played recordings of voices that sounded like Earth commanders ordering soldiers to surrender. He used isolation and silence. He used bright lights and loud noises. Nothing worked. Hyun remained silent and strong. When Hyun was returned to his cell, Velkos was frustrated. The humans should have broken. Every species broke under these techniques. Why were humans different? The next day, they took Lieutenant Yuna. Her shoulder wound from the battle had been treated, but it still hurt. She walked into the interrogation room with her head high. Velkos tried the same techniques on her. She responded differently than Hyun. She did not stay silent. She talked back. "You are wasting your time," she told the interrogator. "You think we will break? You think we will give up our people, our information, our honor?" She laughed. "You do not understand humans at all." "Explain it to me then," Velkos said. "Make me understand. We are not like you," Yuna said. "We do not see other humans as expendable. We do not calculate the value of life like a math problem. Every single human matters. So when you took 5 of us prisoner, you did not just capture 5 soldiers. You declared war on all of humanity." Velkos found this amusing. 5 soldiers," he said. "We captured 5 soldiers from a species that numbers in the billions. And you think this matters?" "It matters," Yuna said quietly. "You will see." But the interrogations were only the beginning. Supreme Commander Thexel wanted more than just information. He wanted entertainment. On the 3rd day, an announcement went through the entire Kethrin fleet. All crew members were invited to watch a special exhibition in the training arena. The primitive humans would fight for their survival. The arena was huge, with seats rising up on all sides. Thousands of Kethrin crew members filled the seats, excited to watch the show. The floor of the arena was dirt and rock. At one end, a large gate began to open. Guards pushed Master Sergeant Kwan through a door onto the arena floor. They had given him only one weapon, a metal staff about 6 feet long. The crowd cheered and laughed. What could a primitive human do with just a stick? Kwan looked around the arena. He tested the weight of the staff. He rolled his shoulders. Then he looked up at the viewing box where Thexal sat. Kwan smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Release the beast," Thexal ordered. The large gate opened fully and something came out. It was a creature from another world, something the Kethrins had captured and trained to fight. It looked like a massive reptile, 12 feet tall with armored scales and teeth like knives. The Kethrins called it a war beast. They used creatures like this to test the strength of captured enemies. The beast roared and charged at Kwan. The crowd cheered, expecting to see the human die quickly. But Kwan did not run. He moved to the side at the last second, letting the beast crash past him. As it went by, he struck it hard on the side of the head with his staff. The beast stumbled but did not fall. The creature turned and came at him again. This time Kwan waited until it was almost on him, then dove forward and rolled under its body. As he rolled, he jabbed the staff upward into the soft flesh of the beast's throat. The creature screamed in pain. The crowd was not laughing anymore. They watched in silence as Kwan fought. He was not stronger than the beast. He was not faster. But he was smarter. He used the environment. He used timing. He used the beast's own aggression against it. For 10 minutes, the battle continued. Kwan took hits. The beast's claws tore his uniform and drew blood. But he kept fighting. He never gave up. He never showed fear. He studied the creature and found its weaknesses. Finally, Kwan saw his chance. The beast was getting tired and angry. It charged one more time, roaring with rage. Quan planted one end of his staff into the ground and braced it. When the beast hit the staff, the pointed end went through its eye and deep into its brain. The creature fell dead. Quan stood over the dead beast, breathing hard and bleeding from several wounds. He looked up at Thexel again and said nothing. He did not need to. His message was clear. The crowd was completely silent. No one was laughing now. In a private observation room, Vice Commander Nixra watched the fight on a screen. She was Thexel's second in command, but she thought very differently than he did. While he saw the humans as primitive jokes, she saw something else. She saw the way Quan adapted his tactics. She saw his determination. She saw that he fought like someone who would never surrender. Nixra turned to her computer and began researching. The Kethrin Collective had intelligence files on every species they had encountered. She pulled up the files on humanity and started reading. What she found worried her deeply. Humans had a history of defeating superior forces. They had fought wars against the Krell Empire and won through unconventional tactics. They had survived first contact with the Andorian hegemony and forced them to retreat. Again and again, humans had been underestimated. Again and again, they had proven their enemies wrong. Nixra compiled a report and took it to Thexel. She found him in his command chamber, watching replays of the arena fight. "Supreme Commander, I need to discuss the human prisoners with you," she said. "What about them?" Thexel asked, not looking away from the screen. "I have reviewed their military history. Humans are more dangerous than we assumed. They have defeated species with superior technology before. They use tactics we do not expect. They never surrender. I recommend we release them and avoid further confrontation with their species." Thexel finally looked at her. He seemed annoyed. "You're being paranoid, Nixra. Look at them. They use primitive weapons. Their ships are slow. Their technology is centuries behind ours. One of them fought well in the arena, yes, but that changes nothing. We have 40 warships. They are 5 prisoners. There is no threat here." "But Supreme Commander," Nixra tried to continue. "Enough," Thexel said. "I will not be questioned. The humans will remain our prisoners. They will serve as examples of the collective's power. That is final." Nixra left his chamber feeling troubled. She could not shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. Back in the detention block, the humans were together for a brief moment during a prisoner transfer. The guards allowed them to walk near each other in the corridor. It was only for a few seconds, but it was enough. Bora spoke quickly in a whisper. "I have been watching the security systems. The energy barriers have a power cycle. Every 6 hours, they drop to half strength for 3 seconds while the generator switches modes. I think I can overload them if I can build a simple electromagnetic device." "What do you need?" Hyun asked quietly. "Wire, a power source, something to conduct electricity." "Work on it," Hyun said. "We will find what you need." The guards separated them again before more could be said. But hope had been planted. They had a plan. They just needed time and materials. That night, Private Doyen lay in his cell and thought about home. He thought about his family on Earth. He thought about how scared he had been during the battle. He thought about how he had frozen when the alien warrior came at him. In the cell next to his, Lieutenant Yuna was awake too. She could hear Doyen's quiet breathing. She knew he was struggling. "Doyen," she called softly through the wall. "Yes, Lieutenant? I froze during my first real battle too. I was supposed to cover my squad, but when the shooting started, I could not move. A good soldier died because of my mistake. I thought I could never forgive myself." Doyen was silent for a moment. "How did you keep going?" he finally asked. "I learned that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what needs to be done even when you are terrified. You were scared in that battle, but you are still here. You are still fighting. That makes you a soldier." Doyen felt something change inside him. The fear was still there, but it felt smaller now. He could live with it. He could work with it. "Thank you, Lieutenant," he said. "Get some sleep," Yuna said. "We will need our strength for what is coming." The 4th day of captivity began like the others. The bright lights in the detention block came on automatically. Guards walked their patrol routes. The energy barriers hummed with power. Everything seemed normal, but the humans were working. During mealtimes, Bora had been stealing small pieces of wire from the food containers. The containers were cheap and used thin metal wire to hold them closed. She had been collecting these wires for 2 days, hiding them in the seams of her uniform. She now had almost 3 feet of wire. Quan had obtained a small power cell. During his return from the arena, a guard's equipment belt had broken and a backup power cell had fallen to the floor. In the confusion, Quan had kicked it under his foot and then into a dark corner. Later, when the guards were not watching, he retrieved it and hid it in his boot. Slowly, carefully, the pieces were coming together. Bora just needed one more component. Something to conduct the electricity at the right moment. Then she figured it out. Blood. Human blood had enough salt and minerals to conduct electricity. It would work, but even with an escape plan forming, tension was building. The weight was becoming harder. Private Doyen paced in his cell like a trapped animal. His hands shook when the guards brought food. Yuna had nightmares about the battle, waking up in cold sweats. Even Quan, who seemed unbreakable, had moments where his jaw clenched and his eyes went distant. Only Commander Hyun remained completely calm. He meditated in his cell, keeping his mind clear and focused. He knew panic was their enemy now. Fear could break them faster than any alien interrogation. That morning, something unusual happened. All 5 prisoners were taken from their cells and brought to a large assembly hall. Hundreds of Kethrin crew members filled the room. At the front, on a raised platform, Supreme Commander Thexol waited. The humans were forced to stand in a line before the crowd. Cameras pointed at them from multiple angles. This was being recorded and broadcast. Thexol began to speak. His voice boomed through the hall. Today we show the collective what becomes of those who resist Kethrin expansion. These primitive humans thought they could defend their borders. They thought their weapons and their courage meant something. He gestured at the prisoners with contempt. Look at them. Look at their simple uniforms. Their crude equipment. Their weak bodies. He walked to a table where the human weapons had been displayed. This is what they used to fight. He picked up one of their rifles. Kinetic projectiles. Gunpowder and metal bullets. Technology that we abandoned 2,000 years ago. He threw the rifle down, and they called themselves soldiers. The crowd laughed on cue. Thexol continued his speech, analyzing human military tactics and dismissing them as primitive and foolish. He talked about how easily the humans had been captured, how quickly they had surrendered, how weak they truly were. Through it all, Hyun stood silent with his face blank. But his eyes were active. He was watching everything. He noticed that not a single Kethrin in that room looked worried. Not one of them seemed prepared for any kind of counterattack. Their arrogance was total and complete. This was good. Arrogant enemies made mistakes. Confident enemies left openings. Hyun filed this observation away for later. When the presentation finally ended, the prisoners were returned to their cells. As they walked through the corridors, Doyen whispered to Quan, "How can you stand it?" he asked. "How can you stay calm when they mock us like that?" Quan smiled slightly. "Let them laugh, kid. Let them feel superior. People who are laughing are not watching carefully. People who think they have won stop paying attention. That is when you strike." Meanwhile, Vice Commander Nixera was in her private office still researching. She had spent the past 2 days reviewing every piece of information the collective had about humans. The more she read, the more worried she became. Humans were not like other species. Most civilizations in the galaxy had evolved on stable worlds with few predators. They had developed technology quickly because they needed to. They were intelligent but not particularly aggressive or adaptable. Humans were different. They had evolved on a death world called Earth, a planet with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and constant environmental challenges. To survive, humans had to become the greatest persistence hunters in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or strongest, but they never gave up. They never stopped chasing their prey. They never quit. This same mentality carried over into their warfare. Human soldiers did not fight for logical reasons. They fought for emotion, for loyalty, for honor. These were concepts the Kethrins did not understand. In Kethrin society, individuals were expendable. The collective mattered, not the person. But humans would tear apart a fleet to rescue even one of their own. Nixera compiled all of this into a new report. She added historical examples, battle recordings, psychological analyses. She made the report as clear and urgent as possible. Then she went to Thexol one more time. He was in his command chamber reviewing fleet positions. She entered and placed her datapad on his desk. "Supreme Commander, I have completed a comprehensive analysis of human capabilities. I strongly urge you to read this report. We are making a dangerous assumption about these prisoners." Thexol did not even look at the datapad. "Nixera, your concern is noted. But it is also unnecessary. I have 40 warships. They have 5 prisoners. Even if they sent their entire fleet, they would be outnumbered. And humans do not sacrifice resources for individual soldiers. No species does. It is inefficient. That is exactly my point, Nixra said, her voice rising slightly. Humans do not think like us. They do not calculate efficiency. They operate on emotion and loyalty. These 5 prisoners represent something more than their tactical value. They represent a principle. Principles do not win wars, Thexel said coldly. Technology wins wars. Numbers win wars. We have both. The humans have neither. This conversation is over. Nixra left his chamber, frustrated and worried. She knew they were making a mistake, but she could not convince her commander. All she could do was prepare for the worst and hope she was wrong. As evening came to the ascendancy, the human prisoners shared one brief moment together. During a transfer between interrogation rooms, the guards allowed them to pass each other in a corridor. The moment lasted only 5 seconds, but it was enough for them to have a quick conversation. I have everything I need, Bora whispered quickly. I can disable our cell barriers. But we will only have one chance. When do we move? We wait for the signal, Hyun said. When the fleet arrives, there will be chaos. That is when we escape. How will we know when they arrive? Doyen asked. Hyun smiled grimly. Trust me, we will know. That night in the darkness of his cell, Hyun did his final calculations. 4 days had passed since capture. The fleet should arrive within the next 24 hours. Maybe sooner. Everything now depended on timing and luck. In her cell, Yuna was checking her wounded shoulder. It was healing, but still weak. She knew that when the escape happened, she would need to fight. Pain would not matter. Weakness would not matter. Only survival would matter. Quan was doing push-ups in his cell, keeping his body strong. He thought about the guards he had observed. Their patrol patterns. Their weapons. Their armor. He was planning the fight that was coming. Bora was examining her improvised device. Wire wrapped carefully around the power cell. A small cut on her palm ready to provide the blood conductor. It was crude, but it would work. It had to work. Doyen lay in his cell and thought about what Yuna had told him. Courage is doing what needs to be done even when you are terrified. He repeated this to himself like a prayer. When the time came, he would be ready. He would not freeze. He would not fail his team. Above the asteroid field, the Kethrin fleet floated peacefully. The crews were relaxed. Many were sleeping. Some were in the recreation areas. The guards were bored with their easy duty. Nothing interesting ever happened in this remote system. At exactly 0347-hour ship time, long-range sensors detected something. A single contact emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. The sensor operator looked at the reading and yawned. Probably just a merchant ship passing through. He ran a more detailed scan. The reading came back. He frowned. That could not be right. He ran the scan again. The reading was the same. His eyes went wide. He activated the emergency comm system. Alert! Alert! Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Wait, there are more contacts. Many more I am reading. His voice became shaky. I am reading 47 vessels. Fleet-level signatures. Supreme Commander, we have a human battle fleet incoming. Alarm sirens began wailing throughout every Kethrin ship. Crews rushed to battle stations. Lights flashed red. The peaceful, lazy atmosphere transformed into panic and confusion in seconds. On the Ascendancy's bridge, Thexel stood frozen, staring at the tactical display. 47 human ships, 1 massive dreadnought, multiple cruisers and destroyers. A full battle fleet. Vice Commander Nixra came running onto the bridge. She saw the display and her heart sank. They came, she said quietly. For 5 soldiers, they sent an entire fleet. I tried to warn you, Thexel said nothing. He just stared at the screen as the human fleet moved into attack formation. In the detention block, Commander Hyun heard the sirens. He stood up in his cell and smiled. He walked to the energy barrier and looked out at the corridor. Guards were running past, headed for battle stations. The chaos had begun. The battle began with fire and chaos. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked through space by the hundreds, creating a deadly swarm that overwhelmed the Kethrin Point defense systems. Railgun rounds, moving at incredible speeds, punched through shields that were not designed to stop solid projectiles. The Kethrins had focused all their defenses against energy weapons. They had forgotten about simple kinetic attacks. 5 Kethrin ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. The survivors tried to organize, tried to form defensive patterns, but the humans would not let them. Human destroyers moved fast, striking from unexpected angles. Human cruisers worked in perfect coordination, focusing fire on single targets until they were destroyed. This was not the formal, organized fleet combat the Kethrans were trained for. This was brutal, chaotic, efficient warfare. On the Ascendancy Bridge, Thexal screamed orders. "Return fire. Maintain formation. Bring the flagship guns to bear." But his crew was panicking. They had expected an easy fight or a negotiation. They had not expected this level of aggression. Vice Commander Nixra tried to organize a defense. She sent orders to different ship captains, trying to create overlapping fields of fire. Some ships responded well, others did not. The Kethran fleet was coming apart under the pressure. Then something happened that shocked everyone. A human destroyer named Defiance took critical damage from 3 Kethran cruisers. The ship was dying, its hull breaking apart. But instead of retreating or trying to save the crew, the destroyer did something insane. It turned and accelerated straight toward the nearest Kethran battleship. The Kethran ship tried to destroy the Defiance before it could hit, but the destroyer was moving too fast and was already too close. At the last second, escape pods ejected from the human ship. Then it slammed into the Kethran battleship at full speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. "The humans just sacrificed a ship to destroy one of ours," a Kethran officer shouted. "That is not logical. That is not efficient. War is not about logic," Nixra said quietly, watching the battle display. "War is about will, and the humans have more will than we understood." Inside the Ascendancy, 5 human soldiers were fighting their own battle. The moment the cell barriers had gone down, they had moved fast. Quan grabbed the first guard they encountered, broke his weapon arm, and took his plasma rifle. One shot to the control panel opened the weapon storage locker. Within seconds, each human was armed. "Move fast, stay together, cover your angles," Hyun ordered. They moved through the corridors like a trained machine. Quan took point, his combat experience guiding them through the ship. Yuna and Hyun followed, covering the sides. Bora stayed in the middle, watching their 6. Doyen brought up the rear. They encountered a squad of Kethran security forces in a junction. The aliens had better armor and weapons, but they fought as individuals. The humans fought as a unit. 3 seconds of coordinated fire dropped 4 Kethrans. The others retreated in confusion. "We need to reach the escape pod bay," Hyun said. "Bora, can you find it?" Bora pulled up a schematic on a wall panel. She had been memorizing the ship layout during their captivity. "There. Section 7, 2 levels down. But it is heavily guarded." "Everything is heavily guarded," Quan said with a grim smile. "Let them come." They moved deeper into the ship. More Kethran soldiers appeared, but the humans were ready. They used every trick they knew. Grenades bounced around corners. Suppressing fire forced enemies into kill zones. When they ran low on ammunition, they picked up alien weapons and used those. In one corridor, they encountered someone they recognized. Interrogator Velko stood blocking their path with 6 armed guards. He looked at the escaped prisoners with anger. "You will go no further," he said. "You will return to your cells or you will die here." Quan stepped forward. "You tried to break us," he said. "You failed. Now let me show you what a broken human looks like." The guards opened fire. The humans dove for cover and returned fire. In the chaos, Quan moved. He was fast for a big man, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He circled wide while his team kept the guards busy. He came at Velkos from the side. The interrogator turned, raising his weapon, but Quan was already inside his guard. Quan struck with his combat knife, finding the weak points in the alien's armor. Velkos tried to use his superior strength, but Quan fought with technique and rage. In 30 seconds, it was over. The interrogator fell. "That was for all the people you broke," Quan said quietly. They reached Section 7, but as Bora had predicted, the escape pod bay was heavily defended. At least 20 Kethran soldiers held the entrance. The corridor leading to it was long and straight with no cover. It was a killing field. "We cannot fight through that," Yuna said, looking at the defense. "We need a distraction," Hyun said, "something to draw their attention." "I will do it," Doyen said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The young private's face was pale but determined. "I can draw their fire." "Give you time to reach the pods," Doyen. "No," Yuna said. "You will be killed, maybe," Doyen said. "But you all saved me during the ambush. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. Let me return the favor." He looked at Hyun. "Permission to volunteer, Commander?" Hyun looked at the young soldier and saw something he had not seen before. This was not the scared rookie from 4 days ago. This was a warrior ready to sacrifice himself for his team. Permission granted, Hyun said quietly. Make it count. Doyeon took a deep breath. He grabbed extra ammunition and moved to the corner of the corridor. Wait for my signal, he said. Then he stepped out into the open and started firing. The Kethrin soldiers turned their attention to him immediately. Plasma bolts filled the air. Doyeon moved and dodged, using everything Kwon had taught him. He rolled behind a power conduit. He used doorways for cover. He fired back, making every shot count. The other 4 humans moved fast. While the enemy focused on Doyeon, they came from the side. The Kethrins realized their mistake too late. Coordinated fire dropped half of them in seconds. The others tried to reposition, but they were caught between 2 threats. Doyeon took 3 plasma hits. He went down hard. But he kept firing even from the ground. He gave his team the time they needed. By the time the smoke cleared, the entrance to the pod bay was clear. Yuna ran to Doyeon. He was badly hurt, barely conscious. She put pressure on his wounds. You are not dying here, she said fiercely. Do you understand me? You are not dying. Did I do good? Doyeon asked weakly. You did more than good, Kwon said, kneeling beside him. You saved us all. You are a true soldier now. Hyun activated an escape pod. Everyone inside. Now. Kwon picked up Doyeon carefully and carried him into the pod. They strapped in just as more Kethrin soldiers appeared in the corridor. Hyun hit the launch button. The pod ejected from the Ascendancy, shooting out into space. Through the pod window, they could see the battle. The Kethrin fleet was being torn apart. More than half their ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet fought with coordination and purpose that was beautiful and terrible to watch. A human fighter squadron spotted their pod and moved to escort them. The fighters guided them toward the massive dreadnought Indomitable. As they approached, they could see the ship was enormous. 3 times the size of the Kethrin flagship. Guns covered every surface. It was a floating fortress. The pod docked in the Indomitable's hangar. The door opened and medical teams rushed forward. They took Doyeon on a stretcher, running toward the medical bay. The rest of the team stumbled out of the pod, exhausted and wounded but alive. A figure walked across the hangar toward them. It was Admiral Ji-won. She was tall and stern, her uniform perfect despite the battle raging outside. She looked at the 4 standing soldiers and nodded once. Welcome home, Commander Hyun, she said. Your report can wait. Medical teams will check you over first. The 5th member of our team, Hyun said. Private Doyeon. He is badly wounded. Our doctors are the best in the fleet. He will survive. The Admiral looked at them with something almost like pride. You all did well. You stayed alive, you stayed strong, and you got yourselves out. Now rest, we will finish this. What are your orders, Admiral? Yuna asked. Ji-won smiled. It was not a kind smile. Complete destruction of hostile forces. No Kethrin ship leaves this system. We are sending a message to the entire galaxy. You do not take human prisoners. You do not mock human soldiers. And you certainly do not laugh at us. In the Ascendancy's bridge, Thexol watched his fleet die. 20 ships gone. 20 more damaged. The human fleet was relentless. They gave no quarter. They showed no mercy. This was not warfare as he understood it. This was extermination. Supreme Commander, we must retreat, Nixra said urgently. If we stay, we will all die. Thexol looked at her with empty eyes. He had been so certain, so confident, so wrong. All remaining ships, he said quietly, retreat maximum speed. Get us out of here. The Kethrin fleet turned and ran. The massive flagship Ascendancy, damaged but still functional, led the escape. Behind them, the human fleet gave chase. They were not letting anyone go. Not this time. In the medical bay of the Indomitable, doctors worked on Private Doyeon. His injuries were severe, but he was young and strong. More importantly, he had a reason to live. He had proven himself. He had saved his team. That meant something. The other 4 team members sat in a recovery room being treated for minor injuries. They did not speak much. The pursuit lasted 3 days. The human fleet chased the fleeing Kethrin ships across star systems, through asteroid fields and around dead planets. There was no escape, no mercy. Every time a Kethrin ship tried to break away and run in a different direction, human destroyers were there to cut them off. Every time they tried to fight, human cruisers overwhelmed them with coordinated fire. Admiral Ji-won commanded the pursuit from the bridge of the Indomitable. She was methodical and cold. This was not about revenge. This was about sending a message that would echo across the entire galaxy. A message that would make every alien species think twice before touching a human. By the end of the third day, only 5 Kethran ships remained. The flagship Ascendancy was heavily damaged but still flying. 4 smaller cruisers stayed with it, all that remained of the mighty fleet that had captured 5 human soldiers. Admiral Jiwan ordered her fleet to surround the survivors. Then she opened a communication channel to the Ascendancy. "Supreme Commander Thexal," she said, her voice cold and clear. "You have 2 choices. You can die here right now with all your remaining crew, or you can broadcast a message throughout Kethran space and beyond. You will tell the truth about what happened here. You will tell everyone that humans are not primitive, that we are not weak, that we protect our own. The choice is yours." On the Ascendancy's bridge, Thexal sat in his command chair. He looked broken. His confidence was gone. His arrogance had died along with 35 of his ships and thousands of his people. But his pride remained. He could not bring himself to admit defeat so completely. "I will not broadcast such a message," he said quietly. "I will not humiliate the Kethran collective. If we must die, we will die with honor." Vice Commander Nixra had heard enough. She had warned him. She had tried to make him understand. And he had ignored her every time. Now thousands were dead because of his arrogance. She would not let the rest die too. "Security, arrest the Supreme Commander," she ordered. The guards on the bridge hesitated only a moment. Then they moved to restrain Thexal. He did not resist. He seemed almost relieved. Nixra took the command chair. "Admiral Jiwan, this is Vice Commander Nixra. I am now in command of Kethran forces. I accept your terms. I will broadcast the message." Nixra composed herself and activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. The message would go out not just to Kethran ships, but to monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Every major species would hear this. "I am Vice Commander Nixra of the Kethran Collective. I am broadcasting from the flagship Ascendancy. 4 days ago, we captured 5 human soldiers. We believed them to be primitive and weak. We mocked their weapons. We laughed at their tactics. We thought they were no threat." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was heavy with defeat. "We were wrong. Humans sent an entire battle fleet to retrieve 5 soldiers. They destroyed 35 of our warships. They pursued us without mercy. They fought with tactics we could not counter, and determination we could not match. To all species listening, humans are not primitive. They are not weak. They value every individual life, and they will go to war to protect their own. Do not underestimate them. Do not mock them. And do not ever take their people prisoner." She ended the transmission and attached footage from the battle. Video showing human tactical coordination, human sacrifice, human aggression. The footage would speak louder than any words. Admiral Jiwan received the broadcast and studied it. Then she opened another channel. "Vice Commander Nixra, you and your surviving crew are free to return home. Tell your people what you saw here. Make sure they understand the lesson you are letting us go." Nixra asked, surprised. "We are not monsters," Jiwan said. "We are not conquerors. We fight only when we must to protect our own. You have learned that lesson. Go home. Teach others." The 5 remaining Kethran ships turned and limped toward their home space. They would carry the story with them. They would tell of the day arrogance met reality. And throughout the galaxy, species that had been watching the situation carefully began to reconsider their opinions about humanity. On the Indomitable, Private Doyen woke up in the medical bay. Pain hit him first, but then he realized he was alive. Yuna was sitting in a chair beside his bed. She smiled when she saw his eyes open. "Welcome back," she said. "Did we make it?" Doyen asked weakly. "Is everyone okay?" "Everyone is fine. You saved us all. The doctors say you will make a full recovery." She leaned forward. "You were very brave. I was terrified," Doyen admitted. "That is what makes it brave," Yuna said. "Now rest. We have a long trip home." The 3rd Fleet turned toward Earth. The journey would take several weeks. During that time, the rescued team recovered from their ordeal. They were given medals and commendations. They were offered promotions and prestigious assignments. But when Commander Hyun was asked what he wanted, his answer was simple. "I want my team to stay together," he told Admiral Jiwan. "We work well as a unit. We trust each other. That is more valuable than any promotion." The others agreed. Even Doyen, when he was well enough to be asked, said he wanted to stay with the team. They had been through hell together. They had survived together. They were more than just a unit now. They were family. Admiral G1 approved the request. She understood the value of a team that worked perfectly together. News of the battle spread throughout human space. People celebrated, not because of the destruction, but because humanity had proven itself. The galaxy had been watching. The galaxy had been judging. Now the galaxy knew. Humans were not to be underestimated. Border incidents with human space dropped to almost zero. Species that had been aggressive suddenly became diplomatic. Trade delegations arrived from civilizations that had previously ignored Earth. Invitations came to join galactic councils and alliances. 6 months after the battle, Commander Hyun and his team were stationed at a border outpost. They had requested a quiet assignment, something routine after their ordeal. Admiral Ji-won visited them there one day. She found them in the recreation area. Kwan was teaching Do-yoon advanced combat techniques. Bora was working on improving their equipment. Yuna was studying tactical reports. Hyun was reviewing patrol schedules. "Commander, a moment of your time?" Ji-won asked. They walked outside to a viewing platform that looked out at the stars. The Admiral was quiet for a moment, then spoke. "What you and your team did changed everything. Not just the battle and the escape. Everything. The way you stayed strong. The way you never gave up. The way you survived. That is what the galaxy saw. That is what they will remember." "We were just trying to stay alive," Hyun said. "That is my point," Ji-won said. "You were not trying to be heroes. You were not trying to send a message. You were just being human. And that was enough." She looked at him seriously. "The galaxy now respects us. But respect earned through violence is fragile. We must be careful going forward. We must be wise. We must know when to fight and when to show mercy. Humans have always known that balance," Hyun said. "We can be fierce warriors when needed, but we can also be diplomats and friends. We do not want endless war. We want peace. But we will fight for our people always," Ji-won nodded. "That is why I believe humanity has a future in this galaxy. Not because we are strong, but because we are both strong and wise." That evening, far across the galaxy, a transmission was intercepted by human intelligence. It was from an unknown alien fleet commander to his officers. They were discussing new protocols for encounters with human ships. The commander's words were simple and clear. "If you encounter human vessels, treat them with respect. Do not threaten them. Do not mock them. Do not attack them unless in clear self-defense. They have proven themselves to be a formidable species. They will cross the galaxy to retrieve even small numbers of their people. They fight with coordination and determination that exceeds their technological level. Approach all human contact with caution and respect." Similar transmissions were being sent by dozens of species. The word was spreading. Humans were not primitive. Humans were dangerous, and most importantly, humans protected their own. On Earth, at military headquarters, a new protocol was being written into official doctrine. It stated that no human prisoner would be left behind. No matter the cost, no matter the risk. Every soldier mattered. Every person was worth fighting for. This was not just military policy. This was who humans were. In the Kethrin Collective, Vice Commander Nixra had been promoted to Supreme Commander. She was rebuilding the fleet and reforming military doctrine. She often spoke to new officers about the battle at Helios Drift. She told them about underestimating humans. She told them about arrogance and its cost. "Never assume that primitive technology means a primitive people," she would say. "Never assume that different tactics mean inferior tactics. And never ever laugh at someone who is willing to fight for their principles. That was our mistake. Learn from it." 1 year after the battle, Commander Hyun's team was called to Earth for a ceremony. They stood on a stage before thousands of people and received the highest military honors. But when Hyun was asked to give a speech, he kept it short. "We did what any soldiers would do. We survived, we fought, we came home. But we could not have done it without each other. And we could not have done it without knowing that Earth would come for us. That knowledge gave us strength. It gave us hope. It kept us alive. So this honor belongs not just to us.